Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the President and CEO of the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce, Shannon Fold.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to all of you out there in the audience and to everyone joining us online today. We are so thrilled that you're going to spend your morning with us today talking about a very important topic. So thank you for the time to be part of our discussion. Your presence shows just how committed this region is towards advancing thoughtful, innovative energy solutions. The choices we make today around energy affect every business, every community, and every family across the Midwest. Between growing demand, rapid innovation, and shifting policies, we are reshaping how we work and live and how we plan for the future. That's exactly why we're here today. The summit brings together people leading that transformation and the people that it impacts most, all of you. Business leaders, policymakers, innovators, educators, and community voices all here in one room, ready to tackle the big questions shaping our future. How does energy innovation create new opportunities for your company and your workforce? What policies and investments will shape the future, the economic future of the Midwest? And how do we balance growth, security, and sustainability in a rapidly changing landscape? Today's conversations will help answer all of those questions. Through a fireside chat, expert panels, and quick, innovative insights, you'll gain practical knowledge about the trends redefining the energy landscape. From grid modernization and nuclear advancements to emerging technologies, storage, and workforce demands. Most importantly, you'll leave with connections and strategies you can apply immediately within your own organizations and your community. The Midwest has a very unique role in advancing the U.S. energy progress, and you'll see that leadership reflected through today's program. As it is here at the Chamber, our role is to convene critical conversations like this one, conversations that influence action, strengthen partnerships, and help this region stay ahead of what's next in infrastructure, innovation, and policy. Before we begin, I want to thank our partners who make this event possible. These organizations are shaping the energy future of our region. Our premier sponsors, we are so lucky to have the three committed organizations that we have. They power communities across the Midwest with reliable, forward-thinking energy solutions. Thank you to Cass County Electric Cooperative, Moorhead Public Service, and Xcel Energy. Your leadership and your commitment to innovation, resiliency, and regional growth are truly appreciated. I'd also like to thank our gold sponsors, Next Era Energy and Otter Tail Corporation, who are advancing technologies and long-term strategies that are defining the next era of energy in the Midwest. Our silver sponsors represent industries closely tied to the energy economy, higher education, media, natural gas, infrastructure, workforce development, and so much more. Thank you for investing in the conversations in the future of the region. AM 1100 The Flag, Future Farmer, MDU Resources, Minnesota State Moorhead, North Dakota State University and their College of Business, North Dakota State College of Science, One Oak Inc., and Prairie Business. Finally, our corporate sponsors listed on the screens reflect a wide-reaching impact of energy across every single sector in our community and throughout the Midwest. Your support reinforces how vital this conversation is to the entire economy. Thank you to our media sponsors, Inforum and MWC Advertising, for amplifying today's conversations across the region. So Inforum live streams our Midwest summits across all of their regions, all of their websites, reaching an average of 5,000 to 7,000 people every time we do a Midwest summit. MWC Advertising, with its deep connection to the local community, has extended the conversation beyond live stream by engaging listeners across multiple platforms, ensuring the event's insights reach both the region's businesses and our everyday consumers. We can't do it without our production sponsors, Livewire. Those of you that have worked with Livewire know they are truly top-notch and produce wonderful production like this. So thank you to Kent and the entire team. Dennis Kroll with 5'20" Design Lounge behind the camera. We appreciate you capturing the moments and helping us share this story on our website and social media. And finally, thank you to Red River Valley Fair Association for hosting us in this beautiful facility. Finally, we can't do this work and have this impact without our partners. We have 32 summit co-hosts. These are chambers and associations that are taking this event and they're bringing it to their own communities. So they do this through streaming this to their members, the same way that we have the luxury of having you, our guests and members in the room. They take that luxury to bring this to their communities as well. Let's give a big round of applause for all of our sponsors and co-hosts today. So for those of you that have been with us before, you know the game. We want this to be as interactive as possible. On your tables, you see those nice little stands with the QR codes. When you have a question, please scan those QR codes and send your questions up to us. We'll be able to monitor those questions, making sure we don't catch our panelists too off guard. But we'll bring those questions up here to the stage and bring them in front of our experts. So now I'd like to take a moment to show my sincere appreciation to our first premier sponsor, Xcel Energy. A key partner in building a stronger regional community, the team at Xcel, especially Tony Grinberg, powering America's future security strategy and strength, works so closely with the Chamber, not just for this event. Xcel continues to show up for us, not just in our community, but in every community they serve. We are so grateful for the partnership. We know that your investment in Innovate 28 and our public policy work, and including the newly launched Center for Civic Engagement, something you're extremely passionate about, but also is very important to our future. I also want to recognize Dawson Schefter of Story and Fields for connecting us with today's speaker, Richard Goldberg. And thanks to Minn Kota Powered Cooperative and Cass County Electric Cooperative for helping make his visit possible, including providing very last minute the transportation to get him here this morning. Now to kick things off, please join me in welcoming John Marshall with Xcel Energy to the stage.
What does it take to power a rapidly changing world? At Xcel Energy, it means being there for our customers day in and day out. It means delivering safe and reliable energy no matter what's happening in the world. Whatever the day or night brings, our crews show up for our customers. And we'll continue to do so while keeping bills lower than the national average. That's our commitment. We're also committed to our clean energy future by developing new and better ways to generate and deliver energy. To get us to our ambitious clean energy goals, we're investing in new tech, finding innovations to ensure a brighter tomorrow. We're also continually strengthening our grid and building resilience, all while keeping our focus on safely providing an essential service to our customers and communities. And as a member of the communities we serve, Xcel Energy knows the important role we play in helping those places thrive. Our employees show up year-round to make our communities stronger, safer, and more vibrant. Because we believe being an energy provider in a rapidly changing world means steadily powering the communities, businesses, and people who are making the world a better place for all of us. That's what we call putting good energy into action.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I know, it's early. Good to see everybody. I do want to open and just offer a bit of sincere thanks to Shannon Full and the tremendous staff at the Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo Chamber of Commerce, a tremendous team, as well as the 32 co-hosts for bringing together the 5th annual Midwest Energy Summit. Let's please give them all a round of applause, if we could. I remember the very first year, a very poignant topic to discuss energy, especially here in the Midwest. And here we look 5 years later, energy is the topic of the day. So very poignant, very glad to have everybody here this morning. Thank you for taking the time, and it's good to see all of you here. I've been working at Xcel Energy for 17 years, a tremendous company. Goes back well over a century here in the Midwest. We are headquartered here in the Midwest, serving 8 states across the United States. And as we look at the great communities in North Dakota, we're very proud to serve the communities of Minot, Grand Forks, as well as Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo. Big presence here in North Dakota, a tremendous state to do business, a tremendous state to partner with for future growth. Now I'm excited to introduce Rich Goldberg. Rich is a senior advisor for the Foundation for Defense of Democracies to the stage for a fireside chat. We're going to dive into energy as it pertains to national security, strategy, and strength. Rich is a leading national expert on energy security, geopolitics, and U.S. foreign policy. He previously served as senior counselor for the White House National Energy Dominance Council and has helped shape U.S. energy and economic sanctions strategy. Goldberg has also advised members of Congress, contributed to major national security legislation, and frequently comments on national media on global energy markets, infrastructure vulnerabilities, and emerging threats. His insights offer a strategic, big picture view of energy, policy, and global dynamics and how they intersect, and really what they mean for the Midwest and the nation. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Rich Goldberg. Thank you very much. Rich, welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Really pleasure to have you here. So you have a real depth here in expertise in global energy markets, foreign policy, national security, a whole depth and breadth, and in a very increasing energy environment that we're seeing today. I mentioned that at kind of my opening remarks. Looking forward to an insightful conversation about both the global, national forces and ultimately the changes and whatnot that are presenting opportunities here for our region. So again, really appreciate you having you here this morning.
Well, thanks to all of you for having me, and thanks for all that you do on a daily basis to power our country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jump into questions in a second. As Shannon noted, I do want to remind folks, again, very interactive. We're going to encourage participation from the audience. Those that are here today, you have a QR code on your table that can help you submit questions, or for those tuning in online, go to chamberquestions.com on your device. Feel free to submit questions, and we'll be bringing those up here to have that conversation. I'll dive right in with our first question if we can here.
Let's go.
So again, robust background, very impressive, and again, some very, very interesting subject matters that you have dived into throughout your career. You served as senior counselor to the White House's National Energy Dominance Council, established to advise the administration on strategies for achieving U.S. energy dominance. So U.S. energy dominance, from your perspective, how does this administration define that, and then how close might we be to realizing that vision of energy dominance?
Well, this is also, by the way, sort of the hometown of the National Energy Dominance Council, chaired by our Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, former governor, co-chaired or vice-chaired by the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, and most of the cabinet. Anybody in the U.S. government that touches energy, any agency, any department that could be either a hindrance to energy development, production, distribution, permitting, or a help, sits on this council. And the mandate I break down into 3 pieces of what is energy dominance. The first is the most basic level for any consumer, for any American, and that is making sure as a country we can produce and distribute throughout the country, to all places of the country, to every citizen, low-cost, reliable energy. Pretty simple. Actually not possible in some parts of the country right now just because of the inability to build, the inability to permit, states that stand in the way. But a big mission from an energy independence perspective that you could achieve if you can produce and distribute throughout the country enough low-cost, reliable energy for everybody to go about their daily lives. It's good for the economy, it's good for national security. If that were where we stopped, we would have achieved energy independence, not energy dominance. The next 2 pieces are what shifts you from a mindset that we had maybe over the last 20 years into the mindset that we have to have going into the future. Number one, if we are actually energy dominant, if we are producers, no longer not just thinking about ourselves as trying to not be net importers, but net exporters, having enough for ourselves, but really wash in energy products, oil and gas and coal and things that we can export, nuclear technology, things where the world's, because they want to start lining up to us as the supply chain for energy, that we can unhook allies and partners from our adversaries, use our energy dominance to influence markets, not just be subject to others trying to influence markets, being able to stabilize markets in times of conflict. It unlocks a huge national security advantage for us, which we're seeing play out today. And the third piece really comes down to the change in what is happening in the world, and that is through AI, artificial intelligence. For the first time in our lives, the phrase that we all grew up with, knowledge is power, has shifted to power is knowledge. Because if we have enough power to power and unlock the compute in the most advanced possible algorithms of AI, in these most advanced, sophisticated data centers, which are really knowledge centers at that point, then we will be able to win the AI arms race against China. And that has applications in every sector of the economy. It has applications in all of our defense and national security. And the cost of losing is unknowable at this point. If China gets there first, if they are the dominant force in AI, if they have enough power to unlock that last algorithm, that point at which the software writes the software, and you're just in a flywheel effect that we can't even imagine yet of what AI holds in store, the century is written by Beijing. If we get there first, and we have to get there first as a country, as the West, the century remains American-led. And so everyone sitting here in this room is a part of it. Mm-hmm. Everyone at home across the country is a part of it. This is like, living through the Cold War again, and living through the space, race, and all these things. Only you're actually a part of it, especially here in the Midwest, in North Dakota, the home of so many forms of American energy production. And so those are the three key levers: having enough reliable, low-cost energy for ourselves, distributed across the country to everyone who needs it, being able to sell to partners and allies, unhook from adversaries, and influence markets both in times of crisis and to induce peace, and to win the AI arms race and have enough power to do that. That's energy dominance if we achieve it.
Excellent. And you bring up Secretary Burgum, roots here in North Dakota, former governor, outstanding. Appreciate the background on dominance and very much as a race, right? We hear a lot about that. It's helpful context. Let me ask you, you mentioned some of the foreign landscape and how it intersects with energy, and you previously worked the White House National Security Council in foreign policy, specifically for U.S. Senator back in the day. Can you speak to that connection between energy policy, national security? What's that link? I mean, it's imperative.
I'll give you a couple of quick examples. One is in the news every day right now. It has to do with the Russia-Ukraine war, mm-hmm. and the fact that Vladimir Putin refuses to stop the war. The president has tried everything possible, bucking conventional wisdom, trying diplomacy, trying to work things out before going back to what had not been a workable strategy, which had been a mixture of Swiss cheese, energy sanctions, and different kinds of economic sanctions, and supplying military means to Ukraine. And he's now looking at the full chessboard and saying, okay, we do need to find pressure points on Putin. We do need to force him to the table in order to end this war. And the energy picture of America, driven from right here in the Midwest, among other places in the country, is giving him unmatched tools to actually bring the pressure we need to bear on Moscow. And if you're watching what is happening in LNG right now, and from day one reversing the last administration's bans on the export terminals, turning the green light back on to LNG, putting us back into the skyrocketing trajectory for LNG exports from America, on track, as Secretary Wright and Secretary Burgum recently said when they were at the International Gas Tech Forum in Italy a few weeks ago, in 5 years projecting to double the nation's exports of LNG, our cabinet members, our top officials are going from European country to European country right now saying, you need to get off Russian gas tomorrow. And we have companies ready to sell you. What's it going to take? What else do you need? What's your regasification need? We will bring those companies in too. We are going to make it happen. I think 2 weeks ago now, Secretary Burgum, Secretary Wright were in Athens for a big conference with the Greeks. And they signed a partnership and agreement for a new vertical corridor where American gas will come into Greece, into new LNG import terminals, with the idea of going straight up to Europe to replace Russian gas. Plus our oil production and our coordination with allies like you saw yesterday in the Oval Office, Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, having a positive relationship with one of our closest, largest oil producers that can, with us, move markets and stabilize markets, has also empowered the president to say, we're no longer going to have the Swiss cheese sanctions regime on the Russians. We're going to actually clamp down on Russia's oil exports that remain to China and India. So from LNG, replacing Russian gas throughout Europe and doing it really fast, and forcing Russian exports of oil towards zero, this is made possible right here, right here, by you. It's amazing. You're part of our national security. Think about it. And more Americans need to understand that. The war on fossil fuels would cost us the ability to do all of this right now to save our national security, to stabilize the world. That's point one. Secondly, I was in the White House during the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, which the president entered, as you recall, at the very end with as he says, the beautiful B-2s and the obliteration of the Iranian nuclear weapon sites, the enrichment sites. Again, you know, when our role at the National Energy Dominance Council, for Secretary Burgum, for Secretary Wright, both members of the National Security Council, was very focused on what are the market implications of this? What are the energy implications? Obviously, Iran exports oil. They could try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, threaten to mine it, blow up ships. China, by the way, has actually become so reliant on Middle East oil. 50% of their crude imports come through the Strait of Hormuz. And I mean, dramatically the reduction, over the last couple of decades, we don't, market-wise, price-wise, it's a commodity, we care. But from an actual sourcing, from a supply perspective, it doesn't actually impact us like it would the Chinese if the Strait of Hormuz closed. But more importantly, we also have the ability to influence the market in a way that we couldn't have done even a decade ago if they threatened to do so, which they were threatening. We did not see a major spike in oil prices throughout those 12 days. $5, $10 at the max. And the minute the war was over, we ended up with a lower price on Brent and WTI than when the war started. That's amazing. So, you know, you think about this in context, our adversaries are becoming energy dependent. They have key weaknesses that we can exploit. We are becoming energy dominant, giving us strength. And now a major national security threat to the United States, the mullahs of Tehran, a radical Islamic regime, will not get nuclear weapons for many, many years now because of those B-2 bombers and what the Israeli pilots did for 12 days. We are now putting the stranglehold on Russia to force Putin to the table to hopefully negotiate peace finally. These are major things. And oh, by the way, the Chinese realize they have a major energy weak spot, and we have energy strength. And we're working overnight, day and night, to try to build out more energy security from the United States to our Indo-Pacific allies. And we'll talk about that maybe in a little bit, through the Alaska LNG pipeline and other exports of American energy to, again, exploit that weakness of the Chinese and bring strength through our energy dominance to our allies there.
It's fascinating. There's a lot to unpack. There's an audience question, I think, related a little bit as a follow-up. What happens to LNG exports if the use of it as leverage succeeds and forces Putin to end the war in Ukraine when it just collapsed Europe, then Russia gets to buy gas again?
No, I don't think so, because what's interesting is that Europe, most of Europe, maybe not all of Europe, but most of Europe, now finally understands why Donald Trump, 5, 6 years ago, put sanctions on the Nord Stream pipeline, was trying to force them off of Russian gas. This is in his first administration. Those sanctions were lifted under the Biden administration. We pushed the Europeans back onto a dependency and increased their dependency on Russian energy supply. And if there's somebody in Europe watching what has happened since the war started in Ukraine, and the provocations that continue in other parts of Eastern Europe, think about Poland and elsewhere, I think that they finally understand their future cannot be in any way dependent on Russian energy supply. So the transition that is going on right now in Europe, it's no longer a green transition. It's a red, white, and blue transition, where they are unhooking as fast as possible from Russian energy supply to American energy supply. And we will continue to expedite that. And even if the war comes to a close or a pause or a ceasefire, you would have to be completely nuts as a European to say, okay, war is over, let's go back to being dependent on Vladimir Putin. That would be the definition of insanity.
A lot of reflection on the geopolitical landscape, a lot of moving parts at once, and kind of sticking on that, talking about cyber attacks and threats a little bit. In a world where infrastructure is increasingly vulnerable to cyber attacks, and again, geopolitical disruption, you covered a lot of moving parts on the chessboard today. How should the U.S. protect its energy infrastructure, from production to transmission, while maintaining that growth, mindful of the geopolitical landscape?
Yeah, it's really important. It's a really important question, and it is a significant threat, because put aside all of the just basic energy needs of our country and the power needs of our country just to function economically and daily life, if you add in the national security priority of what power means for AI, and that is our number one goal for the century, then the number one goal of our adversary, in my view, would be to disable that power in some way, to set us back, to ensure we don't unlock that last algorithm. And if there was a time of war, and of course, all of the best analysts, our military leaders, we look at the military buildup, we look at the strategy unfolding in China these last several years, we look at when they will potentially, God forbid, get to overmatch capability of the U.S. Navy in the Indo-Pacific in the next couple of years. It's coming very soon, unfortunately. We're way behind on our own Navy buildup over many years, and it's unclear if we'll be able to catch back up. At some point, if the Chinese decide this is the moment they want to take Taiwan, they're going to do certain things to try to disrupt us. One of the obvious things would be an attack on our energy infrastructure, and we need to prepare for that. How do we do that? Well, number one, we make sure that we are actually coordinated from the feds, the states, the local levels, industry, utilities, everybody at the table. The state of Texas has done a great job, as just an example, of running an interagency, in the same way that we've post 9/11 built out these interagency federal, state, local task forces for counterterrorism. We need that on cyber protection of the grid. And there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of information sharing tactics that we can work together on, state by state, utility by utility, to understand what we would do, what we should do, what we should be thinking about. Not all of that can be shared here, but in the right rooms, in the right settings, with the right clearances, you get the right people there in every market. Really important that we do that as fast as possible. And for those who are already involved in it or have friends in Texas, want to learn more about it, we can put you in touch. Secondly, as a country, this is more of a national level focus. We can't just have a defensive mindset. The Chinese need to know that we have a doctrine of responding. In the same way that we have nuclear deterrence, right? We have nuclear weapons. We're willing to use them. If you launch a strike, we will launch back. We may preemptively launch if we see, with a first strike capability. If we see something, we have a triad in case you think you can take out one leg. We'll still respond with another. All the elements of nuclear deterrence theory have proven effective. And we need to make sure Beijing understands, you think you can take down our grid, you think you can do things to us, we're not going to tell you what we can do, but you should imagine we have even better capabilities and we will respond. And I think the president needs to say that at some point. I think that will be very important, just on a national strategic level. And the last piece I'll say is, the Chinese are really smart at what they do. And they have built a long-term strategy to get to this point. Chinese technology in and around our grid is a threat to our national security. If it's a component that is key in a source of energy and it's hooked into our grid, it has a potential to be exploited by Beijing. If there is something that is being powered, like crypto, Bitcoin mining, and these Bitmain devices that are used by Bitcoin miners, and they have the potential ability from Beijing with some sort of back switch to just overload the power demand at any given moment. Again, Chinese tech in and around our grid has to be dealt with. In the same way we've started to look at that around national security threats, land use, et cetera. This is a problem for our national security. We have to remove all of that.
Maybe quick follow-up and then jump into a little AI, the topic du jour very much. And again, it's a question for the audience. You just touched on it a bit. What makes China the biggest threat to U.S. energy dominance compared to the other countries? Is it their large population, natural resources within their borders? Are there other factors? You mentioned their placing of technology near us, et cetera. Is there a single major factor, or is it the collective, if you will?
Just in this piece of it, obviously their military buildup, they're racing forward on their nuclear forces buildup. They have a massive population. They've obviously been driving forward in their manufacturing for years now. They strangle the market when it comes to critical minerals, and the periodic table has now shifted in ownership to Beijing. You're seeing that in the news every single day. It's
Magnets,
actually a mandate of the National Energy Dominance Council, and one of the top priorities of this White House is bringing that periodic table back under U.S. influence and control, or at least a Western-aligned control, so that in a time of warfare or in a trade war, as we've seen, Beijing can't just pull a lever and we stop making things in this country. We start running out of things. Our defense manufacturing base runs out of things. That's a critical vulnerability to address. But remember, this is the Communist Party, right? This is not a democracy. There is no trial bar waiting to run to the courts. There is no EPA, there is technically, but there's not a real one. And so you can dam any river for hydropower. You can build 2 coal power plants a week and pollute as much as you want. You're going to do it, by the way, way dirtier than any coal producing plant here in America. They can mine whatever they want. They are racing forward on nuclear power and nuclear power deployment of existing reactor technology, because they don't have a nuclear regulatory commission that takes years to act on a single new build. So from a permitting, regulatory, legal environment, environmental environment, they can just leapfrog us. And they're doing it. They have done it. We are playing catch up right now. And so from an AI perspective, that's our critical weakness. That's their great strength and advantage and leap forward. However, it's not all rosy for them. They are a major importer of oil. And that is a vulnerability for them, which I think they've woken up to in that 12-day war, that Operation Midnight Hammer, realizing that now Iran's nuclear capability has evaporated, that threshold capability is gone. The United States now potentially can disrupt their oil supply through the Strait of Hormuz, not the Iranians backed by China disrupting ours or the West. This paradigm has shifted. So we have some cards to play, but they have some big ones, and we're playing catch up.
Interesting. You mentioned AI, I mentioned it earlier as well. Obviously, very, very common topic these days as it's emerging, coming on fast. The chase for energy. Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Energy and National Security Program, it highlights the energy infrastructure needed, linked to AI and all the advanced computing and the needs. How do you see the U.S. balancing that rapid growth of AI capacity as well as the realities of grid resiliency? Giant question, but getting your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the first step, and really this, if you look at the logical flow of this administration, everything that's been done follows these logical steps. from a regulatory perspective. From day one, declaring we have an energy emergency in America. I think a lot of the press and pundits looked at that executive order declaring an energy emergency and were like, huh? We have an energy emergency? What a ridiculous way to attack the Green New Deal, energy emergency. He's just trying to wave magic wands and come up with ways to just do things outside of the law and build things that are polluting and against all the Green New Deal stuff. No, we have an energy emergency. And it's taken until a couple of weeks ago with a letter from OpenAI to the public talking about the need for 100 gigawatts of power per year of additional build for the grid that we need in order to win the AI arms race, that people have woken up saying, whoa, that's a lot. We don't have that. We're in an emergency. Yeah, we know. It was declared on January 20th. And so the first step after that is, okay, we already have grid resiliency problems in this country. Our perspective from the White House, from this White House, is that a lot of that has to do with the premature forced closure of coal power plants in this country, the attack on fossil fuels, and pushing intermittent, unreliable green energy for years, where the grid in many places now is just less stable, less reliable. And so when you wake up and say, okay, we don't need to just add 100 gigawatts of power per year to the grid. We also need to save the existing grid while we figure out how to do that part. You start saying, okay, and you're starting to see the Department of Energy using its authorities to stop the closure of coal power plants. We saw in a couple places in this country, in the Midwest, in one circumstance, and in the Mid-Atlantic this summer during peak hours of the hottest days of the year, crisis declared, and we were at a tipping point. And we think that the decision to save a couple of these power plants from going down could have been the decision factor in not having an actual emergency. Okay, there's only so much you can do there. We're going to try to do as much as that to stabilize the grid. We want to encourage and incentivize and put capital flow back into baseload reliable energy to make sure we're going as fast as possible to get away from solar and wind and move back to gas. If people want to re-embrace coal, it's great. We're a very pro-coal administration. But gas is king right now, which is pretty clear. And then race forward as fast as possible to nuclear energy as well. And by the way, it's not just a race forward, right? Because we all think, oh, small modular reactors, that'll be 5 to 10 years away. When's that going to happen? We're going to do everything possible to accelerate the timelines for advanced nuclear energy. But the fact is, we have nuclear energy. We just can't build it in this country because of regulations. It takes forever. That can't be allowed to happen. We need to be able to push play right now, fast forward as fast as possible on deploying the nuclear energy we have more in this country, plus gas, plus coal staying online, and then you get to the point of, okay, how are you going to build out that massive amount of power you need on top of what we have in a short amount of time as possible? And that's where every hyperscaler in this country, all the big tech companies, hundreds of billions of dollars of CapEx available looking at this, foreign direct investment, everybody coming to the table and say, how are we going to do this? Is it going to be on the existing grid? Is it going to be behind the meter? Are we going to do little micro AI cities with new build? How are we going to be able to pipe gas fast enough? Can we do it? What are we going to do with farmers and their water issues? How are we going to account for that? These are really important questions we're dealing with right now. Utilities need to come to the table. All stakeholders need to come to the table. And what I would say is, Peter Lake, who ran ERCOT for Governor Abbott coming out of the winter storms, was recruited into the White House. He's the senior director for power at the National Energy Dominance Council. Senior officials, the President of the United States himself thinks about this, works on this on a daily basis. And everybody sitting in the room, everybody who is any stakeholder in the piece of the puzzle of accelerating the build for power, gen and transmission, needs to be part of the conversation. You should look at yourself as a proud American citizen fighting for the future of America. The future of America actually depends on you. And we have misaligned incentives in places. And we have stories of a developer who can't get a land use permit and the zoning's not coming through and the bank won't permit because they can't get the offtake agreement because nobody can guarantee that you'll have that offtake in 5 years, and everybody's looking at each other and everybody's saying, okay, well now we can't get the knowledge out of the power because we can't get the power and we don't even have the land permission to build the power to get the knowledge. That is a doom loop where we will lose to China. Everybody is a stakeholder here. Everybody has to come to the table and help us win this race.
Yeah, and again, right here in North Dakota, obviously long history of coal, long history of wind, long history of natural gas, oil production, come back to the Midwest. For regions like the Midwest, what unique energy market opportunities or challenges are you seeing? Again, talk about the opportunities, there's a lot, right? Tremendous state to do business, very forward thinking, moving quickly, collaborating with communities, which is important on the zoning and land use, et cetera. But what other opportunities and challenges do you see here for the Midwest region?
I think there's actually a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah.
Maybe not in every state, but the capital will follow whoever's easiest to work with. I think that's just, it sounds obvious when you say it out loud, but it is in fact that obvious. Sure. Where are you going to have the most permissive regulatory environment? Where are you going to know that I have energy resources nearby? So North Dakota, looks attractive. Other parts of the country look attractive. Where am I going to make sure that I have a governor, mayors, county boards that are not going to stand in my way, that are at least going to come to the table and say, we want to work with you. Here are some challenges. How do we mitigate them? Great. We want to be part of the solution here. And the federal government, at least for the next 3 years, will be at the table to say, what can we do to help you as well? And I think there's a lot of areas of the Midwest where that will be totally right to see a lot of build here. And this is also a first mover principle, which is there's a lot of capital out there. People are searching. If you put your hand up and you have all those stakeholders at the table, you will win. You will be part of this race. And that will attract a lot of capital investment, a lot of infrastructure build. That will be good for the economy. That will be good in a lot of ways. And there are a lot of technologies that are coming forward that help mitigate a lot of the concerns that you see around in different areas. Again, I understand that there are local concerns for data centers. Data center is a bad word in a lot of places. There are true concerns on that. You need to make sure that you actually are going to be able to have the power, that you're going to be able to do this in the right way where communities are not harmfully impacted. We can do that together. We should also feel a patriotic duty to be a part of this because it literally is the Cold War. It is the arms race. It is the nuclear arms race. It's the AI nuclear arms race. And you can help be a part of winning it and wear that with a badge of honor. And we should have medals for people who are part of winning it, quite frankly. It's that important. I mean, just that important. And so I think that will be a huge advantage for Midwest states, local areas to be at the table. For farmers, a lot of farmland, water issues that are going to come up. There's new technology. There's a company in Israel I've become familiar with, Endrip. They are working and have some pilots on this where they can save huge amounts of water moving from flood irrigation to drip irrigation technology that came out of Israel. Save tons of money, tons of energy, tons of water, free it up so that there's plenty of water for everybody and water to, instead of looking at air conditioning and higher energy costs and power demand, but moving to water cooling techniques as well using the water basin. And you integrate all that together, everybody is a stakeholder in this. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the Midwest.
Let's go to oil, if I could, real quick. Again, question for the audience. Given the reality of peak oil demand globally, what do you think a state like North Dakota should do to position itself to succeed economically, kind of as the world's contemplating decarbonization? That's a component of the future, of course. Obviously, rich oil environment in North Dakota, long legacy of that.
Yeah.
What could the state do to help position itself?
Well, as you know, the motto of the administration is drill, baby, drill. So there's no headwind at the moment on oil other than price and how you factor that in. And that's obviously always a tension in the oil industry. But from a go signal, a green light, it's there from the administration. Huge opportunities in the context of the trade talks. a lot of offtake agreements, a lot of investment, a lot of purchases that are going to be happening from foreign countries that need oil and want to buy it. And these will be long-term offtake agreements that will be really important. There is a huge importance right now in what the administration is doing to push back on the United Nations and some of the UN bodies that have been trying to create international standards or even taxes on emissions, on the use of fossil fuels. And so those fights are important, and the way in which we can ensure that they are long-lasting will be very important. I think that our foreign policy is connected here, where countries now see threats from Russia and the reduction in Russian exports of oil and the need to make that up from some places. There will be a geopolitical reality that American oil is central to our national security and to our allies' security. And so if you are a Democrat who is proudly believing in climate science and climate change and all that, and you've been warring against oil and gas for all these years, and you wake up and realize it's American oil and gas that will save Ukraine, I'm willing to bet you're also a very big Ukraine supporter just based on the politics and ideologies and alignment. And therefore understand that actually preserving democracy and ensuring an American-led century and all the things that you believe in are dependent on ensuring that we are doing things cleanly, yes, protecting our air, protecting our water, trying to have as best an environmental environment as we can, but not doing so by shutting down American oil and gas production. In fact, we have to continue to accelerate it using the cleanest, best technology possible, which is right here in the United States. I also think we should be thinking about byproducts more and talking more about byproducts, ethane and other things like that, to ensure we have a more robust byproduct industry, which will also create a long-term support and mechanism institutionalized to support the oil industry as well, oil and gas.
Interesting. There, another question here from the audience. Again, you mentioned green technologies. A question about the energy rollbacks in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Can businesses expect further rollbacks on green energy incentives, or kind of still to be determined? Obviously, broader impacts. But
yeah, I think the starting point is definitely the One Big Beautiful Bill. So if you want to sort of understand globally where is policy today, that is the first place to go. That's the guiding light there. Things that made it, congrats. Things that didn't, that's the reality. I think as you continue to see play out in the news of the administration's actions, wind is not, I think, coming back. You know, I recall somebody asked me, what do you think about wind and solar? I said, wind is dead. Nobody's told you yet, but wind is dead. Solar's in the ICU. And what I mean by that is there's still a possibility, in my view, just based on technological developments and innovation through battery storage breakthroughs that can potentially become lower cost, other ways of storing energy, where if you actually could make the case over time that you're turning something intermittent into base load, that you're actually going to have something reliable, not unreliable, potentially a future there. It's not today. It's not today. And so from a today perspective, if you are making decisions about where you want capital flow to go, and you are in the AI arms race, you cannot say, well, let's divide and conquer. Let's, you know, all of the above. Let's put 50 down here and 50 down here and 50 down here, you know, Yogi Berra style, 50, 50, 50. You know, that won't work. You have to say, we want investment. We're going to put all of our resources and our time into the lowest cost, most reliable energy sources. Otherwise, we will lose. And that's where you see go on. There will still be R&D. There will still be money that flows into these other technologies. And if things change in the future, things change in the future. But from a policy perspective, I think that's the context to understand where we're going.
all right, as we look to the future and think about the next decade, we go back to our starting conversation about energy dominance. Looking ahead 10 years, what does energy dominance look like? Success. Obviously, we have goals that you laid out at the outset, but as you think a decade into the future, U.S. energy dominance, victory, if you will, what does the landscape look like for us?
Well, there's a couple of milestones that we definitely need to get to. If you go back to sort of my metrics at the beginning. First of all, we need to actually complete construction of infrastructure that allows us to get low-cost, reliable energy, American-made, to all parts of the United States. It is crazy to me that the Northeast of the United States does not have access to that American energy at low cost and reliably. And the administration is very focused on this right now. A couple of pipeline projects that run through the state of New York that have been blocked for a long time. The state of Massachusetts has interfered with other pipeline projects in the past that could be opened back up. But allowing New England to ensure that they are getting American low-cost energy and not from abroad is important. Also on the other coast of the United States, and we see in California, just completely crazy reliance in some ways on foreign energy while shutting down their opportunities, not just offshore, but even shutting down refineries in California. And they have some of the highest gas prices in the country. So making all the right decisions domestically, these are some milestones that we need to get done. If we can build the Constitution pipeline, there'll be a big win for the United States domestically, but other build as well. I also want to see us get to the point, whether it's with FERC and the NRC, that you actually are on fast track. You actually have, there's warp speed. In the White House, they call it Trump speed, where you can actually not worry about having to wait years and what's going to happen and what's my priority level. This is what we need. This is what we need to go build, and we can go do it. And we can do it safely. We can do it environmentally friendly. Everybody has their say. The communities have had their say. There's been a review. There's been your time in court, and we move on. It doesn't take a year. It doesn't take 2 years. It takes a very much short amount of time. We used to build things really, really fast in this country. Like there's historic examples, the Hoover Dam, things like. It is crazy that we would spend a year or a decade or 30 years waiting around for something in America. It can't. We will lose if that continues. So that's a regulatory type of milestone that I think this administration still needs to grapple with. As far as the next step of being able to supply our partners and unhook from adversaries and influence markets and really continue to put ourselves in a dominant national security position, completion of the Alaska LNG pipeline. Right now, it's abstract, it's theoretical. We're waiting on the FEED study to come back right now. A ton of commitments through the trade talks, direct investment from various foreign partners, offtake agreements in principle being signed. If we can unlock this infrastructure build, get everybody at the table, we have the financing, we have the money, we have the offtake, we need the FEED study, and then it's got to be, again, Trump speed to get this built as fast as possible. Because once that is unlocked, we're talking about dramatically shrinking the amount of time it will take to get natural gas to Taiwan, to Japan, to South Korea, to the Philippines, to all of our Indo-Pacific partners, treaty allies and not. That is a game changer as well for our national security vis-a-vis the PRC. And then I think the last piece is on winning the AI arms race. When we actually have the ability to deploy nuclear energy in a rapid way, obviously the first milestone would be NRC getting out of the way or approving or whatever needs to happen there regulatory-wise to start building nuclear power plants as fast as possible. But certainly 5 years from now, if we wake up, or even sooner, because we have taken every hurdle out of the way, we've deployed every possible financing tool, every land use possibility on federal land, we've tried to jumpstart the SMR technology, and we actually field them, and they're working. That will be the game changer day where it's probably over for us as far as thinking about the crisis, and now really going into a flywheel effect on powering the country, powering AI in the future. There's a bridge to get there.
Yeah.
Gas is king for now. Nuclear is the farther future.
Look forward to that energy dominance future very much. Very much appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for coming in. Your geopolitical lens, your history and your career national security, a really robust discussion this morning. Appreciate your reflections, as well as bringing it back, to the obligation we all have right here in North Dakota and the Midwest to play a key role in that energy dominance. Please give Rich a round of applause. Thank you. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. Welcome back, Shannon Full, to continue the program. Thanks, Shannon. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. That was spectacular. We love to have the national perspective of some of the things that are happening on the ground right now. So, Rich, thank you so much for taking the time and traveling out here with us today. Now we're going to shift to the next portion of the program. So let me introduce and talk a little bit about another one of our premier sponsors. Cass County Electric Cooperative is for many years, and in fact, I joke, the start of the Midwest Summit was exactly what good ideas happen on the back of a napkin in a bar. This is exactly what happened. So Paul Mathis, it's my pleasure to welcome Paul. He serves as our Chamber Board of Directors chair currently. He also chairs, he's on the Board of Directors, and he chairs our Innovate 28 Advisory Board. Paul and his team are deeply engaged with the Chamber in helping to advance the initiatives, not just of the Chamber, but of the region, and a true thought leader in the world of energy. So Paul, to you, your team, all of your Board of Directors, thank you so much for the support.
We have a great responsibility to deliver great power. Power that's reliable, affordable, adaptable. Power from coal, wind, hydro. Power that's here right now and that's ready for tomorrow. Sustainable power from renewables and carbon capture. With great versatility comes great power. We're all in on all of the above energy.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Paul Mathis. I serve as the President and CEO of Cass County Electric Cooperative. We serve electricity to members in 10 counties in the southeast part of North Dakota, including large portions of Fargo, West Fargo, and Horace. I'd like to thank Shannon and her team at the Chamber for hosting this excellent event and providing an opportunity to educate people about the energy industry. We face several challenges ahead, including rising electricity rates, aging power plants, and the constantly evolving landscape of federal energy policy. At this time, we have significant opportunities, such as load growth, a natural gas pipeline from the Bakken to the east, and the chance to prepare the next generation with affordable and reliable energy resources. On behalf of Cass County Electric Cooperative, thank you for taking time to attend this year's Midwest Energy Summit. As we continue this discussion, I am excited for the next portion of our program. Taking the stage, we have Stacy Dahl, Vice President of External Affairs for Minn Kota Power Cooperative, who will lead a panel discussion on how energy is an engine for innovation. Let's give Stacy and the panelists a warm welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It is so good to be with you this morning. And my thanks extended to the Chamber as well for a very well-run event and really an invigorating conversation. I think the speaker prior to us did a fantastic job of outlining the stakes, and the stakes are really high. And so today I am joined by a group of esteemed panelists who are the innovators in this region, working for companies with a track record of innovation. And so whether it's strengthening reliability, integrating new technologies, supporting rapidly evolving industries, energy is shaping what's possible for our communities and for our economy. And so I'm joined on stage by this outstanding group. We have WBI Energy, Xcel Energy, and Applied Digital, and each brings a different but valuable insight into how innovation is happening across our landscape. So to kick off the discussion, I'm gonna have each of our panelists introduce themselves. So a little bit about you, your role, and a quick overview of your work. Laura, let's begin with you.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm Laura Loltrello. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Applied Digital, and we are building AI factories, very large data centers, and we've started in the heart of North Dakota and intend to keep growing in the Dakotas.
Thanks. Good morning. I'm Bria Shea. I'm the president of Xcel Energy, Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. We serve 8 states, and John, my colleague, kicked us off and gave a great intro on Xcel and our footprint and our work here, so I'll leave it at that.
And I'm Mark Anderson, Vice President, Business Development and Marketing for WBI Energy. WBI Energy, we're based in Bismarck, a subsidiary of MD Resources Group. So at WBI, we operate an interstate natural gas transportation system, pipelines. We have 3,800 miles of pipe in 5 states, including pipeline throughout North Dakota.
Thank you. So let's start big. In your sector, how does energy drive innovation, and why is that so critical at this moment? Mark, let's start with you.
Well, as I think about all the exciting things going on in our region, and there are many exciting things going on, innovative things, I just can't help but believe energy is vital to allowing for that innovation to happen here. You don't always associate pipelines with innovation, but certainly I think we all play an important role in the energy value chain, which I think collectively is what's required to really unleash this innovation that's coming our way through data centers and many other kinds of things.
Thank you. Bria.
Yeah, and I think our the intro fireside chat here was really a good opening to the critical nature of energy as we sit here today. I think energy is at the foundation of innovation. When you think about whether it's AI, manufacturing, developing new business, energy is a critical part of a decision where to locate. Are they going to be reliable? Are they affordable? It is at the heart of it all. So now more than ever, and for all the reasons that Richard and John discussed, I think energy is the foundation of innovation. So really exciting time, and again, really appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about this very thing.
So I am the consumer of energy in the room. If you think about what's happened in the data center industry, we were running on a 9-kilowatt rack. So a rack of servers is about this big, so pretty small footprint. We are installing in Ellendale, team's installing right now, 130 kilowatt racks. So we went from 9-kilowatt racks to 130 kilowatt racks. And the GPUs are advancing about every 2 years. The next generation will be 300 kilowatt racks, and we're going to be moving 300 kilowatt probably to 1 megawatt, and we'll be moving from AC power to DC power. That amount of change has not happened in the energy industry since power lines were first installed, in the last 100 years. That change is being inflicted upon all of us and all of you to figure out how do you deal with the regulations of an industry that has to be well regulated because it's very dangerous, and you've got to keep people safe and you've got to keep people secure, but what's creating that demand is coming at you very fast.
Absolutely. And so, Laura, I think you just touched on this. You highlighted the consumption of these, large data centers, which is part of the growing landscape. But Bria, from your perspective, why is energy demand growing so quickly, and what does that mean for a company like Xcel? Is it all data, or is there a lot more at play?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there is a mix. I think the growth opportunity in front of us is something we've not seen in a very long time. And there is a mix. I think certainly AI and data centers are at the forefront of that. That's the bulk of it. But like I mentioned in the previous comment, I think manufacturing and also electrification efforts, right? That's all putting additional growth opportunities on the grid. And so it's coming at a time where we are actively in this energy transition, right? We are updating our aging infrastructure. Almost all of us The grid is about that, about 100 years old. We are needing to update distribution, transmission, while we're actively thinking about what does the generation mix look like. Richard was talking about it too, right? Xcel Energy is transitioning away from coal. They're aging. They're not fit for the flexibility that today's grid needs. But solar and wind can't do that all either, right? So we do need gas. We do need storage. We need nuclear. We need that diverse mix. And so trying to transition the energy system, update the grid for aging infrastructure, and meet the new demands, it's kind of all happening at once. And I think it's a challenge, but it's also an incredible opportunity as you think about new users and the increased sales that brings to all of our existing customers and that existing fixed cost that is spreading those same dollars among more users. And so I think at a time when affordability is top of mind, there's an opportunity here. And so I think, again, challenging, but a real opportunity at the same time.
Yeah. So, Mark, for you, the phrase "gas is king" was used in the last panel. So, talk about what that means for a company like WBI, and if you could highlight too, specific initiative your company is working on in terms of moving more gas out of North Dakota. What does that mean for your company? What does that mean for the region?
Yeah, we're seeing a couple of things going on at the moment. One, you've got, in North Dakota, we've got the Bakken play in western North Dakota. Incredible resource, oil and gas production. By all accounts, natural gas production is forecast to continue to grow. So what becomes very important is that natural gas production, as it grows, has the ability to access markets, which requires pipelines. So as you think about that growth over time, we're going to need more takeaway capacity from the Bakken to ensure that natural gas can flow, and the crude oil can then also flow. So that's one dynamic. Also, there are so many exciting things going on in North Dakota on the demand side today. Data centers, power generation related to data centers, and other things. So you got this potentially rapid and large increase in the demand for natural gas locally. So from our perspective, that pairs perfectly, right? You got increasing production that needs a market. You've got growing demand in the region that requires natural gas. So, what we're trying to do is develop a pipeline project. We're calling it our Bakken East Pipeline Project. That would help in both regards. It's a new pipeline that would originate in western North Dakota in McKenzie County, heart of the Bakken, would extend east ultimately to a location not far from where we're sitting, near Mapleton, where we have existing infrastructure today. About 350 miles of mainline pipe, various lateral facilities, and other facilities. But again, to allow North Dakota Bakken natural gas production to reach as many parts of the state of North Dakota as possible. So we're actively developing the project, working very hard. We were very excited earlier this summer when the state of North Dakota selected our project for firm capacity support. The state had, a number of years ago, put forward legislation that was passed to allow the state to support pipelines, and which I really commend the state for that forward thinking. But then further, they did select our project, for which we're very grateful here back this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know our company, for example, has been growing at less than 1% for decades now, really. And so when we have and are looking at really exponential growth opportunities, gas is the resource that is the most flexible, to Bria's comment, and is something that can be constructed in the most efficient way in today's permitting environment. So huge opportunity for gas. So Bria, what types of infrastructure investments, whether it's pipelines, transmission, otherwise, are most critical to ensure the region can support this growing reliance on natural gas?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above, and I think that's a common term we're using in the energy industry right now, right? As you're trying to squeeze out every megawatt of generation and maximize the existing grid, which is, underutilized. You build it to the peak that you're needing on any given year, and so how do you make sure that we are using it to the best of our ability every hour of the year? And I think data centers have a real opportunity to do that, where I see some questions coming in around demand response, and I think energy efficiency, demand response also have a huge part in this, right? How can you encourage or incent people, especially those large users, to pull back on those peak hours? So I think it's transmission build out, right? We need to get the generation to the people. So that's a significant investment there, while we're also investing in our aging transmission, so that's twofold. Similarly, on the distribution side, there's a real opportunity there. We're updating existing distribution investments, but we're also building out that grid. So you're looking for all the nooks and crannies of the system. Where can we best utilize the existing system while also building it out? So I think really we're looking at all generation, all demand response, all energy efficiency to maximize the existing grid while also building out every area. So I think the question about what infrastructure do I think is necessary to be investing in it, it's in all of it. And so that brings, additional questions that I'm sure we're going to get into about labor and supply chain, the fact that everybody is all doing this concurrently, all trying to meet the day for data centers and AI, capitalize what I think is a huge opportunity for the region. So it is really, you're needing this holistic look to make sure that not only we're keeping the lights on, right, that's paramount, but also we're being able to execute on these commitments with every component of that, whether that's, supply chain, labor, et cetera.
Yeah. Laura, so for a company like Applied, who in my view has taken a very creative approach to this rapid build out, can you talk about your company's approach to infrastructure? You have a track record of working with utilities, but also investing in infrastructure as a company to expedite that development.
Sure. So let me start with why we chose North Dakota, and specifically why we started in a very small town called Ellendale. For those of you that know Ellendale, North Dakota, it has a population of about 1,100 people. Right now, we have about 1,100 construction workers in Ellendale. So we almost doubled the size of the town. And we chose it for quite a few reasons. One, there's about 5 gigawatts of wind energy that is blowing from Canada through to Minnesota that comes right through Ellendale. And so we use that to take advantage of the stranded power that otherwise wouldn't have gone anywhere on the grid, because we are very thoughtful about where we build in terms of consuming power that we don't want to take away from people and take away from homes. Then when we designed our building, one of the other things that we care quite a bit about is water usage. And our data center will use less power than a single family household, because the liquid cooling in it, unlike a lot of data centers that you hear talked about, it's a closed loop system. So it flows through, cools the servers, and comes back. The other big advantage that we've thought about, and why we love the Dakotas, not just because the people are amazing to work with, and utilities are amazing to work with, is we get 210 days of free cooling a year. So what that means is, because it's so cold, and the big problem besides just powering those servers is keeping them cold, is we can use the outside air to cool those servers for 210 days a year, instead of having to turn on mechanical refrigeration, which just burns more energy. So there are so many advantages that we have in the Dakotas and in Minnesota, but we started in the Dakotas, to be able to use what the Midwest has and the capture of energy that can be generated here that's really not consumed anywhere else.
Absolutely. So Laura, there's a couple of questions coming in that I think are really directed towards Applied. So specifically, while racks can handle more power, that would lead us to believe less acres and smaller buildings would follow. Is that the trend, or is that an accurate question?
So let me just talk a little bit about so we'll talk about the current building we have. With the footprint that we have an 8-acre building that is going to consume 100 megawatts of power. And in the data halls themselves, that means we've got about a kilowatt of energy per square foot, a little more than a kilowatt of energy per square foot, which is really, really tight. Now, data centers overall, this past year, surpassed office buildings in new build-out. And I'm expecting that trend to continue. So we will see fairly large footprint data centers. We are working to consume the land, though, that otherwise wouldn't be consumed by anything else. So we are working to balance to make sure we're putting our data centers in a place that can consume the least amount of energy and then not have an impact on the environment at the same time, including land usage.
Bria, can you follow on to that and really talk about how a company like Xcel is thinking about locating generation and transmission opportunities to these large load centers?
Sure. So the way that we plan in a very long lead time, right? Generally, we're thinking in the 15 to 20-year time frame to get to the exact point of the infrastructure comment that transmission lines, new power generation are generally long lead time investments. Also, there's a lot of changing conditions. So we have a very robust resource planning process that we go through. We do it about every 2 years, though honestly at this point we're updating it about every 6 months to make sure that we're following the trends and making sure that as these new growth opportunities arise that we're capturing them and adjusting as necessary. And so it's really that holistic look. Again, you're trying to maximize the whole system, make sure that our resource mix is diversified. That is one of the core tenets of Xcel Energy's strategy, is that we don't want too many eggs in any one basket, right? Like solar is great, but we do not want all solar all of the time. There's a diminishing return there. The more solar you get, the less valuable it is on the system. Same goes for wind. And honestly, as much as I would love to talk about nuclear and how important that is to Xcel, I do not want 100% of our power coming from nuclear, right? You think about your fuel reliance and where it comes from. You want to make sure that we've got a diverse mix there so that this all comes into the holistic picture as we think about the next 10, 15 years. And another unique thing that we do, again, about making sure that we're planning for all scenarios is do really robust sensitivity planning. So we're thinking about what are the variables that could change. That's at the federal level, that's at the local level, that's natural gas prices, that's renewable prices, that's our load forecast. What if all of the data centers come? What if none of the data centers come? So then you test all of those sensitivities around our planning and make sure that under every scenario, we keep the lights on every day of the year, every hour of the year. That is increasingly important, the resiliency, the reliability. And as you get into a more intermittent mix of energy resources, wind and solar, not always there, that is when you need to make sure you've got those increasingly flexible resources like gas that can flip on and off as you need it. Storage can do the same. Nuclear can follow to an extent. But that is really where the diversity comes in. And again, to your point about how do we think about these large load opportunities, it's the same way that we think about all growth opportunities. It's in that holistic sense. We're thinking about all of our customers, all the resource options, and every hour of the year.
Absolutely. So a lot of these questions make the assumption that we can just expeditiously build out all this infrastructure, which is no small challenge either with in necessary permits at the federal, state, and increasingly the local level. And so one of the experiences that I think is widely noted is that there is increasing public pushback really in every part of what you do here up on stage. So Mark, I want to start with you and talk about what is WBI's approach as you are building out linear infrastructure to gain and keep the public support and to essentially move these projects forward in an era where it's increasingly difficult to build that infrastructure.
Yeah, you're right. We build and operate linear infrastructure. So when we're building a new project, 5 miles or 300 miles, a lot of our work begins with landowners. We need to go out and work with landowners across that route to ultimately, if we're going to build the project, to secure right-of-way, easements, to allow for the construction and then the long-term operation of the pipelines. So as a company, we celebrated our 100-year anniversary last year. So we're very long-term minded, and other operators in the region are similar. So landowner relations are of utmost importance. And community, related to that, community relations. So we have a very methodical approach as we go about doing all of this. And I'll just talk from our Bakken East project, because we're underway. The project is still under development. We're actively working with landowners as we speak. So we identify all the landowners across the route. We contact them all. We work with them to secure permission to survey. We do survey work, helps us kind of perfect that route. And all the while, we're working with landowners as best we can to ensure we're meeting their needs. And we're trying to be flexible and transparent. We're in the process, as we speak, of hosting landowner meetings all across the route. Again, engagement, transparency, and then as this progresses, there'll ultimately be many other community meetings, public meetings, again, all across the route to allow for and really encourage that engagement and transparency. Because, you know, we want to get this right. Because, again, we want to be, any pipeline we build, again, we want to be operating it for 100 years. So we've got to get the land and the community relations right. Because, you know, we're going to be partners with those people for the long term. And specifically to natural gas, we believe, natural gas, I think, has been viewed favorably. Because whether it's a landowner or a community, they typically see merit in access to a safe, reliable, affordable natural gas, which is that's our fundamental objective, right? Providing that access. Mm-hmm. It allows communities to grow and thrive and attract development and jobs and all those kinds of things. So we have experienced a positive reaction historically to natural gas infrastructure. Not to say it's easy or we don't take it seriously. We absolutely do. But so far we've had a strong positive track record of working with all parties across all levels of government to get our projects done. We take it very seriously.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about how natural gas pipelines in this region have generally been more accepted by the public than, say, you know, the pockets of opposition to, say, a CO2 pipeline that are well documented across the Midwest. And I think it's a disconnect in terms of the public not seeing the value proposition, or we haven't mapped it out as clearly as possible. So agreed, and it's an important conversation because landowners are key stakeholders in this process, absolutely. So Bria, same question to you, just in terms of how you approach critical infrastructure in those landowner relationships as Xcel.
Yeah, I don't know that I've got a whole lot to expand. I mean, I think that's a similar way to how Xcel approaches it. We've got an incredible community relations team, many in this room, who are out there at the forefront, not only, you know, targeting those areas where we know we've got upcoming projects, but they've got the existing relationships so that we've got the place to go, you know, when we do have those investments. I think at the end of the day, as everybody's moving in the same way, where we've got all of this infrastructure investment that does take up a significant amount of land, and you know, landowners are critical to that. They also are all going through regulatory processes, and I think collaboration is the name of the game. You're not going to get approval, or you're not going to get approval in the timeline that you would like when you go it alone. So I think, again, we're methodical, very thoughtful about the way we approach this. I'm really proud of the way that Xcel exists in our communities and brings along our communities with our investments, and again, have had a great track record for success in getting those ultimate projects approved because of the way that we've approached it.
Laura, you've got, I think, some really interesting stories between Jamestown, but your Ellendale facility in particular. You know, as utilities, we have 80 to 100 years of relationships in the community. Your company is a newcomer to the scene, so you don't have, you know, those decades of deep deep relationships. So talk about how you approach that conversation with communities.
Sure. Yes, we are a baby, especially compared to all of you. We have been very transparent and honest about what we're doing and how we're building and thoughtful about build. A simple example is we were driving to site at 6 a.m. and we see some of the construction lights and we're like, they don't need to face town. They can face away so that we're not projecting light pollution in the town. So we think about things like light pollution and noise pollution and making sure that we aren't using water that the town would consume and making sure that the energy we use is thoughtful about how it's generated. And we do use both wind, but we also use the grid. So whatever our power companies like MDU in North Dakota supply for us, that's how we generate our power, along with on-site generation. So we met very early with the town of Ellendale, and we did the same with the town of Harwood to get their support and get their understanding of what we would be doing, and then get them to be able to see firsthand. And we've done tours of our site so they can see how we're building and what thought we're putting into it. Both my boss and I are from very small towns, and we really want to see the towns grow and thrive again. Like in my world, I feel like we're building the new railroad. We are building new jobs in small town America, which is fantastic and exciting, and it's really very exciting for me to be part of that.
One of the stories when we toured the Ellendale facility earlier this year, as you drive up to the facility, there's a big wall, and the story behind that is there's also an active crypto facility, crypto mining, which produces noise in a way that the big data centers that are encased in concrete don't. But the noise pollution was a real concern to one neighboring farmer, and so as part of that, applied, constructed that sound barrier to reduce the noise for that one individual. So I think it's a great example of being a good steward and a responsible corporate citizen within the community. Laura, one of the questions from the audience, and I know it has come up, particularly with the Harwood facility, can you, and thinking about NIMBYism, water is a critical question to communities, particularly in the Cass County area. But talk about how, so what is the applied approach to water usage, and how have you communicated that?
Sure. So in each of our facilities, where you use water in a data center is to cool the servers. So there's a loop of water that's the facility water loop that goes around, and it ends up going over the chips, cools the chips, and then comes back out. In a lot of data centers that are being built in the US, they're using evaporative cooling, meaning the water goes in, gets hot, comes out, releases into the air. Another gallon goes in, comes out, millions of gallons, releases into the air. We do not do that. We have a closed loop liquid cooling system, meaning we fill the pipes once, hopefully never again, once. And we only fill them again if there's a leak. And the water goes out, it cools these servers, it comes back, it gets cool again through either the air or it gets cool again from mechanical refrigeration, and then goes back and cools the servers. And it just repeats itself. So our data centers will use less water than a single family household. And we will stick to that as our design principle for any data center we build.
Mark, can I come back to you? Our previous speaker talked about the policy pivots that this administration has made really on a number of fronts, in particular to fossil energy. But there are dramatic changes with how one administration approaches the resources themselves, and then of course regulatory efforts that sort of are the outgrowth of their approach. So talk about how a company like WBI views those transitions of regulatory approach, and what does it mean to you to have a stable regulatory approach as you look to build out assets that have to last for decades?
Well, to say a stable regulatory environment is important would be an understatement. So we're an interstate pipeline operator, so we have a host of regulators. One of the principal regulators we have to work with is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Long history of working successfully with FERC. And as we go about building a new pipeline, we need to ultimately get an authorization from the FERC to allow us to begin construction. So at the moment, at the federal level, we're very much feeling tailwinds. It's a situation, we got a lot of work to do. Whenever we build a lot of environmental work, and there's a lot of work goes into it as we prepare and submit our application. And we've never hoped for it to be easy. We're fine doing the work. We're built to do the work. We just hope it's predictable and reliable, so we can map out a schedule and feel comfortable that we can meet that schedule in terms of getting the approvals that then sets the stage for construction. So we feel very good about federal policy at the moment. So back to our Bakken East Pipeline project, the way we're looking at the federal piece, we're hoping to make some key filings next year. Call it our 7C application, middle of next year. And then again, based on the political climate today, we feel confident that we should be at a point in probably early 2028 where we get that authorization. So still within the current administration. So we feel very good about our situation today as it relates to Bakken East and our ability to maintain our schedule, which ultimately has pipelines constructed and ready for service over the course of 2029 and 2030. What happens after, where this pendulum goes, it's hard to know, and that's challenging there. But in the moment, for this immediate window, we feel pretty good about things at the federal level, and then locally at the state level and county level. The state of North Dakota is fantastic, very supportive for our industry in so many ways. So we feel good about where we are now.
Great, thank you. Bria, same question about a stable regulatory environment.
Yeah, it's critical. I think both from a planning perspective, as you're thinking about the longer term, as I mentioned, very long-term nature of our industry. So as you plan, what tax credits or lack thereof are going to be available. And I think also from an investor perspective, that's a critical part when you're thinking about who's going to invest in your company. Do you have a constructive and stable regulatory environment? So it's critical. That isn't to say that we cannot adjust as things change. And we certainly are doing that right now. We're seeing tax credits change significantly at the federal level. That is not changing our long-term strategy, but it's changing some timing of some things. And again, we can do that within the state regulatory constructs of which we operate. And I think we've got a long track record of doing that very successfully. But when I think about risks to the utility, certainly the changing regulatory or the regulatory volatility, I think, is certainly one of our main considerations. But again, that's kind of where the robustness of the plan comes in, right? You're thinking about, do you still do this plan? I'll just use tax credits as an example. Are we still going to move forward with this if the tax credits, ramp down, if they go away? And that is the exact kind of scenario plan that we think about on 20 different fronts that include different regulatory considerations to make sure that under all of these scenarios, our plan works. We keep the lights on, it stays affordable, and we've got a sound strategy. So critical consideration for sure, but we've got a planning process that encapsulates the potential volatility there, and so again, well positioned.
Sure, and you get the additional, WBI would be in maybe a similar position in that you operate in multiple states, right? And so, Bria, for you specifically, you're in the Dakotas, you're in Minnesota, who have divergent politics. And so when we talk about regulatory certainty, you're building assets in one state to help serve another, and yet you have a very different approach to policy and regulatory frameworks. So
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. So I should say we have several regulators. We have not only the FERC that was already mentioned, but we have the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. We have all 8 states that have public utilities commissions, and all of the county and city ordinances that you could probably possibly imagine. So all of those come into our planning processes, and I think in particular when I think about Minnesota policies versus the Dakota policies, you're right, they are increasingly divergent. But I think at the end of the day, all 3 of those particular states have one, the same priorities, and that is to be affordable and reliable. And I think that is, again, where our robust planning process, the Excel can meet all of the needs of our customers. Yeah, we've got some difficult conversations on both sides of the coin there, but what we're doing, with natural gas in North Dakota, what we're doing with coal in Minnesota, we are not making everybody happy every day of the week. But at the end of the day, we are meeting all of our aligned desires to be affordable and reliable. And I think that's where we really can get to that reasonable path forward. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Laura, again, just you as a company that has really, really grown rapidly. So you're a newer company, but same question to you. How do you view regulatory certainty?
It's a good question. For what will be helpful is I do believe that if you've got stability in regulation, you can move faster. And what I see the need for in the Midwest is to be able to move faster, to take advantage of the demand that's coming from AI. If you look at Texas, Texas has one state, one set of policies, one grid operator. That is extremely helpful, and they have been able to take advantage of that by building quite a bit of data centers very quickly. I think the Midwest is far better positioned for AI factories than Texas, because if any of you know, Texas is a little hot. It's much better to build here where it's cooler and you can cool it and you can create jobs. The growth that you will see in AI factories over the next 10 years is hyper exponential. It's not linear, it's not exponential, it is hyper exponential. The 9 kilowatts to 130 kilowatts to a megawatt, a rack, will cause this demand to just explode. So I don't see the demand stopping. In the Midwest, you have the supply. You have the supply of energy needed. You have oil and gas. You have wind. You have some solar, so the supply is there. What's needed is regulatory governance that lets you adopt speed. And speed will be what either helps the Midwest win or the Midwest lose when it comes to the race of AI factories.
Great question from the audience here. What are the top 3 priorities our region can focus on to continue spurring innovation and development into the next decade? So, Laura, let's start with you.
I would say the top priorities are, as I just said, figuring out how to get the regulation to work in speed, and then figuring out how to get policies that make it friendly for AI factories to build. Now, the AI factories that come to any small town or any town need to be built responsibly. We are really careful and thoughtful about how we build, and we want to build responsibly, but these can create jobs and can revive small towns. So if you can create an environment where you can move as quickly as the technology builders that are building GPUs, and you can have a stable, safe environment, we can create jobs in the Midwest very, very quickly and help the Midwest grow.
Thank you. Bria, same question.
Yeah, I appreciate the point about the speed. That is something we talk about regularly, is how can we go faster? And that is not to say bypassing regulatory processes or the community conversations, right? But we have to go faster than we do today. And so that's on us, that's on our regulators, that's on all of this conversation, and these great community conversations are an important part of that, is how do we put all of our brains together and figure out if we want to meet the opportunity today, how do we move faster? And so that, I think that is the critical priority across all of the states that we serve, and something that we are thinking about daily.
Yeah, so I think maintaining reasonable, predictable policy and regulation is important. But further, as you think about some of these exciting things happening, data centers and other, I think a priority among all of us across the full energy value chain need to be partnering and collaborating to come together to really make this a situation where the data center developers and others have that access to safe, reliable, affordable energy. And again, we've got one role in the value chain, then there's power generation and there's local distribution, there's the production on the upstream. So I think we all need to be collaborating and working very closely together to ensure our region, our state, can really capitalize on all these exciting things that are coming our way.
Yeah. So to get there, we need a strong workforce. There's a question I think that aligns with the broader question about how your companies are approaching workforce. There's a lot of growth, there's a lot of construction, which is great, but that creates its own set of challenges. But also, what are the nature of these jobs? Are they construction only? Are they more permanent? And how does that fold into the conversation you have with communities?
Sure. So we do need a lot of people that have skilled labor in construction. I cannot say it enough. We need more engineers. We need more mechanical engineers. We need more electrical engineers. We need more civil engineers. We need people who know and want to build. In past build, though, when all of the construction workers leave, we will have operators for the facility, people that know how to run and fix a chiller, people that know how to fix a dry cooler. So again, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. We will have security guards and technical engineers, people that know how to work on servers or networks. The skilled labor that remains after the construction ends, we will end up with probably 300 to 400 jobs on site in just Ellendale for about 400 megawatts. So that is significantly increasing the size of the town, and we need those people to have the skills that we're not getting yet out of the university. But we are partnering and willing to partner more with the universities to be able to generate those.
Great.
Yeah, those are the exact same categories. A intense pipeline of jobs coming, right at us as I think about all the build that we're doing, generation, transmission. We are increasingly building out the labor pipeline on a project so much earlier than we ever would have before. Signing contracts, actually mapping what are the skill sets we need, and who else is going to be building in the same time frame in the same region, and are they pulling from that same skill set? So it is not only planning and securing the immediate projects, but also thinking about what are those longer term. Engineering for sure across the board. I think labor and construction, we've got 10 years of such significant build out across the whole, every area of the system that I think, those are the areas that I think I see a significant increase in job demand, and that's kind of how Excel is planning for it. Again, much longer than we ever have before, because it is going to be, I think it's part of what could make or break the success of this entire plan is, do we have the people to build it?
Great. Mark?
Yeah, so as we think about building big projects going forward, we're an existing operator, so we've got staff, we've got engineering departments, but we will absolutely be needing to augment those staffs. And we're already making plans for that well ahead of ever being under construction. So we have some hiring we're planning to do next year, again, well ahead of a lot of these Bakken East related activities. So we're doing that. Same kinds of jobs that have been referenced, all across the board, all engineering disciplines, land, you name it. So that's kind of in process. And as you think about actual construction for a large pipeline project, how we address that is it comes down to our project management planning. You know, to build a big project, we have to mobilize a lot of third-party contractors to assist. So the strategy then to find and contract with those contractors in large part will hinge on their ability to mobilize resources. The big iron, the construction equipment, but also the staff to carry on these activities in accordance with our schedule. So that'll be a big portion of our contract strategy on the construction side as well.
Very good. Thank you. Please join me in thanking our panelists for their expertise and their insight this morning. Very much appreciate your time. We'll now take a brief 10-minute break, and when we return, we'll dive into our innovative insights, continuing to explore the future of energy in the Midwest. Thanks.
Stratosphere, easy breathing in your atmosphere. Oh, how could I? How could I ever forget last year when we were on top? Send me flying like a rocketeer without trying. Now I'm way up here. Oh, how could I? How could I ever forget last year? When we were on top of the world, when we were in song clips online. Last week, you had some girl on your mind. Out with the heartache and with the
Ladies and gentlemen, the Midwest Energy Summit will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. Once again, the Midwest Energy Summit will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. Thank you.
know that it got not to run back to you, and it's hurting my heart. I'm no longer your muse. I'm a little less obvious than I was before, 'cause I'm out of your head, and now I can't pretend anymore.
Ladies and gentlemen, today's program will resume in 1 minute. Please find your seats. Once again, today's program will resume in 1 minute. Please find your seats. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the President and CEO of the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce, Shannon Full.
All right, welcome back. This is the time to try to herd the cats back into the seats. So welcome back, everyone, and what an incredible morning we've had so far. Up next, we're going to shift to some fast-paced series of 10-minute interviews, almost the TED Talk style, powerful snapshots from leaders in the field. So after these segments, all our Innovative Insight speakers will return then for a moderated discussion. So again, that's the opportunity for you to scan those QR codes, keep the questions rolling in. We're really pleasantly surprised. We're getting a lot of questions in from our online viewers as well as from those of you with us in person. So before we jump into the Innovative Insights, we're going to hear a brief sponsor message from Travis Schmidt, the General Manager for Moorhead Public Service. Moorhead Public Service joins us this year as a premier sponsor for the summit for the first time, bringing a strong commitment to powering our community and supporting regional growth. Their team is already making an impact through initiatives that connect local businesses, residents, and energy solutions for a stronger and more resilient community. So please help me welcome Travis to the stage.
Good morning and thank you again. November 1st, 1895, the first municipally owned generator started generating in Moorhead. Today looks a lot different than it did 130 years ago. Today we roughly get 50% of our power from Western Area Power Administration, the hydro dams on the Missouri River, and we get the other 50% from our joint action agency partner, Missouri River Energy Services out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The Metro has a privilege of all three utility energy sectors in the FM area: the co-ops, the investor-owned utilities, and the public power, such as Moorhead Public Service, and many of the other chamber co-hosts this morning. Again, we're proud to be a sponsor, showcasing our energy sector through great reliability, very affordable electricity, and clean energy. The value of public power and the value of public power that it brings to the community. To kick off our innovative insights, help me welcome to the stage Catherine Warwa, Manager of Talent Management for Otter Tail Power Company. Catherine, welcome.
Thank you, Travis. The leader came to me a couple of months ago about an open chair in their plant.
Thank you.
This chair represented a role that they had been trying to fill for months with no success. As the time went on, continuing to look for the great candidate, deadlines, stress, and workload piled up. That empty chair could be a symbol for our entire industry and a bigger challenge. The energy industry is about powering homes and businesses, but to do that, the industry also has to be about investing in people who make it all possible. And as we look to the future, those chairs may be multiplying. I'm thrilled to be here today to talk about the future of the workforce in our energy industry, a little bit about the growth and the opportunities and challenges it represents, and ways that we can all tackle the future together. As of late 2024, there were 8.5 million jobs in the energy sector. That's up from 8.2 million jobs about 10 years ago. But that increase glosses over just how much change our industry has experienced. From new technology, new generation sources, new talent demands, so much has changed. Moreover, we can expect the rate of change and growth to increase over the next 5 years, as predictions conclude that the energy industry will add 5.7 million jobs by 2030. As we consider how we've all gotten to here from then, we may need to adapt our strategies to get to there in the future. The roles in highest demand are data analysts, engineers and technical specialists, skilled trades, management and project development. This one can be particularly challenging to recruit for, as not just technical expertise is necessary, but also strategic vision and leadership experience, as well as cybersecurity. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics guesses or predicts that by 2034, there will be a 29% increase in these roles. And these are just the roles in the highest demand. There are 4 primary drivers to these challenges that might help us strategize and create tactics that will help us meet these opportunities and challenges. The first is an aging workforce. A significant portion of our current workforce in general is approaching retirement age, and about 25% of utility employees will be eligible for retirement in the next 5 years. This will result in a massive loss of expertise and valuable institutional knowledge, creating a substantial experience gap. I don't know about you all, but I get to do retirement interviews with our soon-to-be retirees, and I'm constantly blown away by their mental maps. They know where all of our underground lines are buried. They don't need to look at a system. They know which overhead lines attract the most squirrels and therefore the most challenges. And they know how to interact with and serve each one of their customers. And that is a near impossible expertise to replace in a new hire. The second challenge is a fierce competition for talent. We compete not just with the tech giants, but many companies and industries for STEM talent and skilled trades. Third is a lagging training pipeline. What educational institutions are training their soon-to-be workforce on and what we predict we'll need in the future don't always align. And getting institutions to adapt quickly is quite a challenge. The fourth is that our industry may have somewhat of a perception issue, an image problem, if you will. The traditional energy sector in particular often struggles with public perception issues and is sometimes not seen as innovative or high-tech or mission-driven as what the next generation, millennials and Gen Z, are looking for in long-term employment. That's the good and the bad news all rolled into one. But I'll also go through a few tactics we can all implement to intentionally meet these challenges. What I'm really here to talk about is that we can meet these opportunities if we have a plan. So the first is training and upskilling. How do we invest in our talent today to ensure they're ready to help us meet the challenges of the future? The second is broadening recruitment. How can we meet more people and bring them into the totally cool energy industry? Third is reviewing how we hire. Are we hiring for future needs as well as current? And how do we know? And the fourth is long-term retention. What do employees want from their employer, and how do we adapt our traditional total rewards programs to meet their needs? I'll speak briefly to each tactic. First up, and usually the most obvious, is training and upskilling employees in the skills that will be needed. For this to work, it's critical that HR and leaders partner together to predict roughly what the headcount, skills, and roles of the future will look like. From there, partnering on a few approaches to generate that workforce would be building up internships and apprenticeship programs. Offering hands-on experience allows workers to earn while they learn and provide a direct path to longer-term employment. OTP, Otter Tail Power, has built our own apprenticeship program for line workers, knowing that the demand for journeyman level is high and will only get more challenging to hire. We're committed to training up the next generation and potentially carrying a little bit extra cost, knowing that not everybody will stay forever. A second tactic is cross-functional training or job rotations, allowing employees to work in different departments or on varied projects to broaden their skills and understand the business from a wider perspective. Some companies will have specific training rotation in which new employees or prospective leaders train amongst different departments for 3 months or 6 months for a 2-year rotation. From there, they can preference what group they'd like to join long term. Obviously, that's a little more challenging for a smaller company where roles aren't just always available. So ways to do that would be to take advantage of projects, stretch assignments, and other training leadership roles. Third is learning in the flow of work, so training coming just in time when people need it. AI is a great opportunity for this because it can be woven into day-to-day activities. Last would be to start continuous improvement programs, providing recognition, maybe even incentives, for employees to come up with new and better ways to get the work done. Second is recruitment. We need to broaden who we're talking to and who we're attracting. A few ways to do that. Targeted education programs and partnerships. Building partnerships with community leaders, local trade schools, and universities, not just traditional educational institutions. This also includes community groups that serve populations that historically haven't had as much exposure to our industry. External instruction opportunities, sending your company experts to educational institutions and community groups to provide guest lectures, workshops, and mentorship opportunities, focusing on the skills that will be needed, not necessarily the knowledge that they need to have on day one. And last, focusing on employee experience in any and all recruitment materials. People are looking to join something that matters, particularly the youngest generation entering the workforce. Show them how impactful an energy career can be. Third of the 4 is our hiring process, one of the most impactful areas for future workforce development. There's a reason Warren Buffett's primary hiring criteria are famously distilled into 3 essential qualities: integrity, intelligence, and initiative. To really evaluate your hiring process, you need to better understand your hiring manager's incentives. When you think of that empty chair, that leader is looking to stop the pain. And they need someone who will take the least time and the least investment to stop the pain of the empty chair. So you need to implement a counterbalance to that natural incentive so that the workforce needs of the future, the potential a candidate brings to the table, are both accounted for in the hiring decision. And last is retention, being an employer of choice, where employees want to stay. According to Harvard Business Review, there are 3 things people care most about when deciding where to invest in their career. The first is culture, the second is career growth, and the third is leadership. Culture is all about stating what your values are, and more importantly, the implications of what they're not, and ensuring that everybody walks the walk and talks the talk. We all want to work at a place we feel where we belong, and our values are the primary drivers of where we feel most at home. Second is career growth. People make career moves to make career moves, so show them how they can grow within your company. Finally is leadership. As you develop your values or solidify them or reinvest in them, which leaders are getting the recognition and rewards? People want to see the ones that match your values grow. Remember that empty chair in the plant? It's not just a story. It's really not. It's a reality we're facing across the industry. Despite the challenge that comes with growth, there are plenty of opportunities to seize. Preparing employees and leaders for the future requires new approaches to training, development, recruiting, and long-term retention to help us meet the future. It's not just about technology, it's about the people. And together we can make sure that every chair is filled with the talent that will power our next generation. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Caroline Hackeret, Associate Professor at North Dakota State University.
I am so excited to be here and humbled. It has been an amazing morning, and I've heard perspectives that I had never truly heard before. And I'm so grateful to follow Catherine, who emphasized the human side of your sector. I'm going to build on that because we're going to talk about disaster resilience. First of all, I want you to understand humans are amazing. A 50,000-year-old adult male skeleton with a fully healed broken femur explains how we went from small groups of individuals wandering around the cradle of Africa to populating every corner of the earth. Evolutionary anthropologists tell us that in order to heal a femur, other people had to shelter, feed, protect, and transport that guy. And that's where our magic sauce is. In our capacity for empathy and our innate need to create social networks. What you see, I hit the wrong button, this is gonna be great. What you see behind me was a picture of me at the Oklahoma City bombing. This was not an event caused by a natural hazard like we typically think of, but it is an event that was born from hate created by loneliness and isolation. As a disasterologist, I get to see the best of humanity when other people are having their worst days. We had a global response to that event. I had thousands of doggy boots, cases of Hershey's Kisses, teddy bears from school children all over the country and banners of support that hung behind me. I am one slide too fast. I know that I am singing to the choir when I stand up in front of you because I have watched each and every one of your organizations respond to disaster. You are ready to go. This morning has just emphasized how innovative, can-do, and committed to the communities that you serve. What hasn't been said yet, that you are organizational resilience ninjas. And so when we look at your organizations, we use a 4-step model when we establish energy sector resilience. First is redundancy. First is robustness. What kind of disaster shock can your system take without losing function? Second is redundancy. If for some reason you lose a system or part of a system, do you have a substitute? Do you have a contingency plan? Rapidity refers to how fast can you take a system that's offline back online. And finally, resourcefulness, and this is the human factor again. Resourcefulness is the ability to diagnose and prioritize problems and create solutions based on the materials you have on hand. Those resources might be material, economic, informational, technological, or humans. What I'm going to ask you to do, because you're so good at organizational resilience, I want you to take it to our communities. Community-based resilience is a little bit different. We think of resilience as a set of network capacities, and you have a role in every single one of these capacities because you touch every aspect of community life. The first adaptive capacity involves information and communication. Information and communication has 5 golden rules that you probably are all well familiar with. Tell the truth. Tell folks what you know. Tell folks what you don't know and what you're doing to figure it out. Tell the folks when they can expect to see you again for an update. And 5, talk with people, not at them. The second capacity is economic development. Many speakers have already addressed this particular capacity, so all I will say is everyone benefits from a diverse economy. As enthusiastic as you might be about the potential benefits of a project, be equally honest and upfront about the potential risks and who's going to bear those burdens. And once again, talk with people, not at them. Social competence is your corner of the earth. This is based on the trust and credibility community members give our institutions, processes, systems, and organizations. If you've got strong social competence, you've got community members that will look at one another and in the face of disaster say, we can and we will come back. And then finally, social capital. This is where I'm going to push you to expand. Some of you already do a great job. You're very connected to the communities that you serve. So you might yawn when I give you certain strategies because you've already started doing them. For others, it might be a bit of a challenge. Visibility, connectedness, and support is what's needed to build social capital capacity. Remember, all disaster resilience is community-based, not individual, and it's based on trust. I want you to move from just being critical infrastructure, what a cold term, right? Critical infrastructure, to being a full community partner and a lifeline, because that's truly what you are. Remember that the key is trust, and you need your people. Thank you, Catherine. You need your people to open the door. You have a role in everything. I think I've said that, 3 times, and every other speaker has said it multiple times, so take that one away from this morning. But through your people, you have an opportunity to really grow your presence and credibility. Ask yourself, do your own people believe in you? If that gives you pause, I would encourage you to start there. You need to be credible within your organization before you're going to be credible to the larger community. You want visibility and action versus lip service. Folks need to see you out there with them getting dirty. You can continue to write checks. Some of you are doing a fabulous job of funding some really wonderful projects and initiatives in the communities that you serve. So don't stop writing checks. I'm not beating you up for writing a check. But I want you to show up. I want you to show up with your people, and I want you to show up in person. You can participate in initiatives that already exist, or you can make your own. But the research shows that the key to credibility and trust-based relationships is actual volunteerism. And not just volunteerism facilitated by other organizations. However, some of the strategies you can use for this is let your team members participate in other service organizations. If those organizations require dues, can you pay half of them or all of them? Can you offer that same potential to all of your team members, not just some? Can you give them time off for projects without penalty? And again, needs to be distributed fairly. Can you give them extra gold stars on annual reviews for activity in their communities? Now, all of these are blue sky strategies, right? I know you're going to be there for the gray sky. I see it all the time. I've followed your caravans across state lines, hurricane after tornado. So some corporations go big, and they shut down for a full day of public service. And every office that they have takes that day and does a local service project that's unique to each locality. If that's a possibility, that's amazing. So I'm going to close with, what are you going to do now? Well, first of all, I need you to recognize that disasters are occurring with more frequency and in greater intensity than ever before. In 2025, as of November 1st, the United States has had $14 billion disasters. That's billion with a B. 5 of those happened here in the Midwest. We had 4 tornado events and 1 flooding and severe storm event. No one else is going to solve this issue. No one else is going to come in and build community-based resilience without us. So we are the cavalry. I want you to ride with us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Owen, former president of the South Dakota Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
I fell down. They gave me this and had one of those knee things over here and had crutches over here, and they said, "How old are you?" I said, 70. That's when the knee thing and the crutches disappeared. I said, "You don't have any balance, you're gonna have to use this." The painful thing was they were right. I broke both my tibia and fibia down in my ankle here. 2 years ago, I broke my femur and arm, so I've got 2 screws I got 2 weeks ago. I've got 12 screws I got 2 years ago and 6 screws, 20 screws. I give that to you for this reason. There's a vaudevillian joke that you can take with you that says, that guy from South Dakota was screwy as hell. Oh, come on. That's a groaner. That's not. There's some associates of mine from my previous career. I've been brought up here because they decided somebody should talk about this thing we call NIMBY, not in my backyard, which is the wet blanket that will smother all of this. And they were smart enough not to ask anybody in North Dakota to do that. And so since we've had a rampant disaster in South Dakota, they brought me up. So did Eric Spencer. So I got to go to Bismarck, and then Shannon figured out I must not be contagious. And so she brought me here to talk about this thing where people start resisting the growth that we know is good for us and necessary for our future. I see this NIMBY thing in 2 different camps. And I will kind of spend most of my time on the second one. The first one is the people that are literally not in my backyard. They don't give a rip if you do it in somebody else's backyard. That's just fine with them. So those are the people that you all are experts at dealing with. Those are the ones that the strategies we've heard about. And I grew up as a utility brat. In the 1980s, my dad was chairman, CEO, and president of what was then Black Hills Power and Light, which is now Black Hills Energy. And to close the loop in a creepy way, my wife, after graduating law school, has spent her career as a lobbyist, 2 lobbyists in one family. All I can say is pray for our children. And she's the lobbyist for Black Hills Energy. This form of NIMBYism you can reach. And you all are very, very good at that. And Caroline had some great suggestions about how you do that. I have taken to talking about Spokane. Raise your hand if you've been to Spokane. You're thinking Washington. I'm talking about Spokane, South Dakota. Right over, somebody raise their hand. It's right over there, was right over there by Custer. It had 2 general stores, 4 or 5 bars, 4 or 5 churches. You always have the same number of churches as you do bars because the Sunday services were held in the bars. It had a post office. To be an official town, we decided that you have to have a store, a bar, and a post office. It had all 3. Today, it's a picnic table. So you can share those experiences about when towns lose their economic base, they in fact will disappear. And the folks that I've run into through the years, and I spent 47 years in chamber work. I was in Missoula, Montana, and if you talk about a town that NIMBY was strong, holy smokes. Bill Clark and I butted heads the whole 11 years I was there. We couldn't agree on the color of a wall if we were painting it together. But he would listen, and we can talk. Let me spend most of my time, the remaining 5 minutes and 33 seconds, talking about this case of measles that broke out in South Dakota. I saw 2 of you look up. No, we don't have measles in South Dakota. We're working on it, but not yet. We thought we were going to build one of those CO2 pipelines. Stacy Dahl talked about pockets of resistance. Turns out one of those pockets is South Dakota, like the whole damn state, as it turns out. Started out a few years ago when some landowners started showing up at meetings about the CO2 pipeline, and they had printed signs. And I was watching them. They were nice. And I was watching them, I go, a group of landowners shows up with handwritten signs. They don't show up with printed signs. They all had the same stories about how icky Summit was. So I started to suspect there was something broader in play than just landowners getting together. And we have always suspected it was the Sierra Club who don't like ethanol because it helps petroleum have a longer future. So they hired, I gotta say this, they hired some damn good political talent. And the lesson I will share with you during this 10 minutes is when you're up against that kind of political talent, they're not sitting down at the table. They're not in my backyard or anyone else's backyard, and they got a bunch of two-letter words that end in hard consonant sounds. They teamed up with a bunch of our property rights folks that have been clattering around, and they ran into a group in West South Dakota, and they started talking about property taxes. What do property taxes have to do with a CO2 pipeline? Damn little. It's all virtually nothing. But here's the truck that ran over us in South Dakota. We passed a bill called the Property Owners Bill of Rights. And it really did establish, we thought, some good protections for landowners with the CO2 pipeline. Keep in mind, the CO2 pipeline's different than the gas pipeline we heard about here. It's part of the Green New Deal. It has money available that's government money. It comes from federal regulations. And so it is different. It is evil. They found, they put the Property Owners Bill of Rights on the ballot. We have referendum in South Dakota. They needed to collect within 90 days 17,500 signatures, and they couldn't afford, they didn't have the money out west to hire signature gatherers. So the former head of South Dakota Chamber was walking around going, hell, if they're not hiring signature gatherers, they're never gonna make it. They turned in 35,000 signatures, and the fault rate, something political people know, was 90%. That's an astonishingly high level of signature validity. So we had a campaign. We went head to head. I was a small part of that campaign. I helped write the poll questions. If you get into one of these battles, just know this. I always enjoy, raise your hand if you've been part of a campaign. Strategizing, polling, that kind of stuff. Okay, damn few. Double that number for the ones that wouldn't admit it. I always enjoy the start of a campaign when you're sitting in the room and somebody gets to saying, look, if we just educate them, they'll agree with us. And I always point out, you know, the opposition sitting in a room just like this, they're usually around card tables. We have nicer facilities. And what are they saying? They're saying, if we can just educate the public, they'll agree with us. Campaigns are about finding themes to move votes. We thought we had the right themes. They had good political talent. They took 60% of the vote. Second place in a ballot measure thing is lousy. Although I ran for mayor of Missoula, I came in second during that race as well. When you're in one of these fights, and the thing that we could not secure, I don't think we could get people to understand what was at stake. The corn growers couldn't decide what they wanted to do, and ethanol plants buy 60% of South Dakota's corn. And we couldn't convince them that their prices might collapse as 60% of their market kind of went away. They just flat-ass didn't believe it, pardon the term. We also didn't rally our governor and some other key leaders to be in that space. So the work you're doing now ahead of time in your communities to be that kind of voice is critical if you're going to win one of these head-on battles. But that's what could happen to you, and I hope it doesn't, but if it does, I'll just be glad they're picking on you, and maybe they'll leave us alone. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage the Innovative Insight speakers.
You good, David? All right, thank you again for your insightful presentations. Again, I'm Travis Schmidt from Oregon Public Service, and it's a privilege to help guide you to the next part of the program here. We've heard 3 powerful presentations or perspectives on workforce, extreme weather, disaster recovery, and the not in my backyard challenges that we're all seeing today, all of which play a critical role in shaping the future of our region. I want to thank each of our speakers for taking the time to share their expertise and setting the stage so thoughtfully. What's especially exciting is how these themes intersect with one another and with energy. From building a resilient workforce to preparing our systems for increasing volatility to working effectively with our communities, each of these topics influences how we plan, build, and innovate moving forward. Again, just as a reminder to the audience, if you have any questions during the panel, you can submit them through the QR code that's on your table or on the screen as well too, or through the chamberquestions.com. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to kick this off, and my first question is to the group. All 3 of you can hit on this one. What are the biggest trade-offs we are facing trying to build resilient energy systems quickly while still ensuring community support and a strong workforce to execute the work? I'll let you start, Carolyn.
We took a poll.
Well, thanks. It might be the last time I get a word in edgewise, Dave. I think the trade-off is time and buy-in. I used to tell folks who had a crush on a certain boy that they probably had that crush on that boy for 6 months, but the boy didn't know, and you had already been in a relationship for 6 months. That's kind of where your communities are with some of these projects. You've been living with this proposal. You've been developing this project for a long time before you put it out for the public to look at. Just remember, they're going to need time to catch up. They're going to have questions, and you'll need to have answers. If you don't provide them the information, humans do the same thing when there's a blank space. They fill it in for themselves. And if you want to bring them along with you, be honest, upfront, and enthusiastic, but give them time.
I think employees and community members, sometimes we like to categorize them because their perspectives are different, but we're all people reacting to a rate of change that is uncomfortable. So I think I echo a lot of what Caroline said in terms of being forthright about what you know, also what you don't, and being open to listen to employee concerns. The pace of change is something that comes up with our employees frequently, and trying to suss out where they feel under-equipped or less informed, and then providing them with what we know and also what we don't, and what they can expect from us in terms of when we'll find out, or at least our process for learning more.
All right, go ahead, David.
More bad news. I didn't adequately point out, all those signatures that came from the Black Hills area, that pipeline didn't go within 350 miles of there. They were property rights / property tax. They were feeling their oats. And now, since they kicked our butt, their next target is data centers. Trevor Jones was the point person, and he's in this room. I said I wouldn't point him out, but he's the guy trying to hide under a table right now. They are working, they admit they don't know what data centers do, but they're working all the communities to pass bans on data centers because they just know they're icky.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to hit on this one, and I think we've got a question from the for the panel as well too from the audience. If we want to accelerate energy development in the Midwest, which has to come first? Community buy-in, workforce readiness, or infrastructure resilience, and why?
Well, I've got a natural bias to employees, obviously, being in HR and talent. But it takes the people to get the projects done, to communicate with our communities and build those relationships or maintain them. So I think the starting point is making sure that we have the talent needed to foster those relationships, deepen them, and represent what we're looking to build. So I would advocate for workforce being the starting point.
I'm not going to disagree with Catherine. I think that you have to get the buy-in from within before you can go and try and get support from without. So yeah, if you have the workforce, if your people understand the project fully, if they can support that project, if they can be ambassadors for you, because these are the people that are going to sit in the stands and watch a basketball game together. And so they're going to have conversations. Get your people on board.
I'm going to go with community buy-in because we've had workforce issues for bloody ever. We haven't had enough welders in South Dakota since they first invented welding. And I finally asked the question, we've had tons of programs about welders. Where the hell do they all go? And that's a different conversation. So I think the issue of finding workforce has reached a static amount, and I don't think people hear it anymore. But if they're scared of the project, the NIMBY folks can get a hold of them. And people don't believe that we might run out of power. The most powerful things you can do is shut it off selectively, and they'll be at your doors asking how they can help.
I think it's a combination of both infrastructure, being ready and having some of that capacity available, along with having that workforce that knows what to do, and then they can do the community buy-in piece of it. So I think they all play a piece of this, and I think they're all very important. We got to figure out which one goes first. So, a question from the audience: what role will AI play in Workforce Challenge? What makes a job AI-proof in the energy industry? Excuse me.
I think the biggest opportunity with AI for many companies is telling it where to pull from. So I'm sure we've all experimented with many different AI, ChatGPT, Google. I used it to help create my presentation. So it's certainly an asset, but when you're talking about speeding up your own internal processes or designing for your specific projects, having all of your systems and data in one place so your homegrown AI knows what to use is, I think, a big upfront investment that not enough people are aware of or talking about or planning for. So I think that's an aspect that needs a little bit more attention and is going to require a lot of shift in terms of priorities and where IT and analytics departments are focused is what's the right place to get the information? What's the source of truth? As far as roles, I think what we've heard from our employees is a concern that it can publish a memo or write an email or create a presentation or create a project plan. But we've been focused on helping our employees understand that their value isn't just to produce the thing, it's to solve problems, anticipate what could be coming and get ahead of that. And as far as I know, AI is not as equipped to do that in the near future. So our employees' value to our organization is not their ability to know things or to write things or produce things necessarily. It's their ability to problem solve and anticipate what's coming and prepare their teams for that. So we try to keep people focused on the problem solving aspect and the thinking aspect that is a part of every role.
All right, Caroline? Oh, go ahead.
AI is really, really fabulous at pattern detection. And it can do incredible things very, very quickly when you're dealing with patterns. Guess who doesn't have good patterns? Humans. And that problem solving, the ability to diagnose the problem, prioritize what part of that problem needs to be addressed first, and coming up with a well thought out solution is going to be human-based.
I retired. I had trouble finding a tie to wear to this thing, so.
Okay. Here's one for Caroline and Catherine. Extreme weather events stretch crews thin. How should we be thinking about workforce preparedness and surge capacity in the future?
Yeah, that one is hard, especially since y'all have all these memos of understanding and cooperation with one another. We have the same problem in other areas of disaster, especially during response, in that we have disaster gypsies. We have groups of folks that get called in as surge, but that during the regular don't have that function. I don't know how feasible that is within your organizations. So I'm going to kick this one back down the...
One of the biggest challenges that we're finding is the younger generations prioritize differently than the past generations. So one of the employment opportunities, if you want to call it that, with disaster relief or recovery is overtime. And unfortunately, that's not as appealing to the younger generation who prioritizes work-life balance, schedules, routines, and paid time off. So we're already starting to see some of the challenges that come with what the next generations want from their employer. And it's different than what was before. So we might need to change how we structure shifts, how we structure jobs and tasks, and be open to the fact that there may not be enough people willing to put in a 16-hour shift on a not regular, but reliable basis, and be open to changing what we expect of people in terms of what they do, when they do it, and for how long.
Perfect. We got another question from the audience here. How does industry collaborate with higher education in the Midwest to solve these workforce problems?
Okay, I'm going to jump on this one. Communicate with your higher ed folks. I know that we have the Dean of the College of Business here too, so she may have even better ideas. But we invite industry members to sit on advisory boards that informs our curriculum. We send our students out on internships. I work with the folks that are overseeing those internships. What did our students come equipped with? What else did they need? What do you need? If we don't need to build widgets anymore, we can change our curriculum so we're not teaching how to build widgets. So the collaboration, again, is human to human, and we need to hear from you. And we, on our side, we need to be responsive.
I think we need to be proactive too, and not just wait for the educational institutions to come to us. So if you're ever at a career fair, seek out the folks who run those departments or run those curricula and begin to build a relationship and give feedback. for us, building close relationships with engineering departments, with trade schools, ensures that we are an employer of choice for many of their graduates. And I think that feedback loop and keeping the conversation open is what keeps us agile.
Perfect. All right, one here for David, and I would assume Caroline as well too. Are there examples where disaster recovery efforts help shift community perception about the need for updated energy infrastructure?
Absolutely, ask a Texan. A couple winters ago, the Texas grid went down. We had people freeze to death. I know up here in the Midwest, when you hear it's 28 degrees, it feels like a heat wave. Down there, no. And our houses were built differently down there. And yeah, as soon as, unfortunately, it takes that kind of horrifying event to bring it to the forefront, because y'all are a little too good at your job. We walk into our homes and we flip a switch and voila, we have light.
One of the things we all see and witness is when there are those disasters. Power companies from all over the country are sending a handful of crews to get down there as quickly as possible, and the headlines are, how many people don't have power? And we watch that number go down and go down, and that shared experience, the human response to the tragedy, I think is one of the endearing things about what you all do.
I would agree. We've sent crews down to Florida several times. We've been around North Dakota, Hillsborough, Detroit Lakes as well too, just helping out with those recovery efforts, and it definitely helps to have good neighbors. So I've got one more question from the crowd here. David, will these projects such as CO2 pipelines ever get done, or are they fated to be doomed?
Hell, I don't know. I watched the legal fight over the CO2 pipeline, and it is different. The gentleman that's the Speaker of our House, now running for governor, was the first one to say, if you're just storing CO2, that's not a use. And so you can't be a common carrier if there's not a use for CO2. Myself and several others argued with the federal government has said CO2 is icky and we don't want it in the air, so storing it is the use the federal government has prescribed. Our Supreme Court at first disagreed with us, and so that's kind of a key issue. I think given the timeline that Summit kind of faces, I won't be surprised if that pipeline goes nowhere near South Dakota. And I don't know if we'll have that gotcha now, you SOB moment. But I do think CO2 is different than burying electrical lines, oil pipelines, although that was an interesting issue, and you all know it better than most. So I think CO2 is more contentious. God love you if you can be part of that answer. I don't think South Dakota is going to be.
Perfect. I got one last question. We'll do a quick speed round here. When local communities see energy projects bringing good jobs, does that meaningfully reduce NIMBYa resistance, and what makes that connection credible?
I think it helps encourage the vast majority to not pay attention to the NIMBY folks. I'm still convinced that they are a minority. They are in the churches. They are meeting socially after hours in those kinds of establishments, but I don't think they're the majority. I think the majority of people like turning on their lights. I think they want their communities to be viable. I think they want jobs for their kids. I think they want a future that their retirement can be secure. And so when we see successful projects, that gives them that reassurance and makes them less susceptible to the catching fire.
I agree.
again, if you're upfront and honest and can address some of those questions, and when you can partner that with well-paid jobs and economic diversification, I think it's going to be a win.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you all for your thoughtful and engaging discussion. It's clear the workforce, disaster recovery, and community engagements aren't standalone topics. They're deeply interconnected, and each plays a vital role in shaping the future of energy in our region. Again, thank you for your time today. I'm going to now bring up Cale Dunwoody to wrap up. It's now my pleasure to welcome him to the stage. And Cale is going to close out the Midwest Energy Summit for today. So thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you all for being here today and contributing to such a meaningful conversation. The Midwest Energy Summit exists because decisions we make about energy impact every sector of our economy, every employer in the region, and every family who calls the Midwest home. Today we heard powerful insights about innovation, infrastructure, policy, and workforce, and most importantly, the opportunities ahead for leaders to engage, collaborate, and take action. Events like this happen because of partnership. So I want to again extend our appreciation to all of today's sponsors. Your commitment to elevating this conversation strengthens this summit and the work being done across the region to move energy, business, and community forward. As we look ahead, I encourage you to stay connected with each other, with our speakers, and with the Chamber. These conversations don't end here. They shape policy decisions, business strategies, and long-term competitiveness for our region. And we hope you'll join us for our next major opportunity to continue this momentum, the Midwest Economic Outlook Summit this February. We are excited to share that we have selected our keynote speaker, President Kashkari from the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, who will be joining us as we explore economic growth, the current business climate, and the challenges and opportunities shaping the future of the Midwest. Mark your calendars now. This is your chance to hear directly from one of our nation's leading economic voices and continue building on the insights and connections from today. We can't wait to see you there, and on behalf of the Chamber, thank you again for investing your time and your leadership into this summit. Safe travels and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.